Hello and welcome back to another video. This time we're going to be discussing Assassin's Creed Unity and Assassin's Creed Syndicate for the PlayStation 4. I know it's on other platforms as well, but specifically I'm discussing the version on PS4. Now, what I want to preface this by is the fact I haven't actually completed the game fully, but I do feel I've played enough of it now to warrant the ability to discuss it openly and fully. If there are any major things that I feel that need to be added, I will put them in the comments down below once I've completed the game. It's been a while since I finished Assassin's Creed Rogue. Now it's time to move on to Unity and Syndicate. So after completing Rogue, I did have a bit of trepidation about jumping into the next two titles because of the bad sort of press at their release. However, having actually played them now, I can say that whilst that may have been warranted at the time of release, following that with all the updates that have occurred, it's really not noticeable and the games play just fine, to be honest. Maybe there's a little bit of pop-in, but other than that, it's really good. So I had been holding off on playing these two titles because I was really anxious to just jump into Origins. However, I did want to play the games in order of release. Unity and Syndicate were the last two titles that really focused on stealth gameplay before moving on to this new sort of more action RPG oriented style. So in that sense, I was actually kind of happy to play them before, so that I had the last sort of glimpses and experiences of this before jumping into the new genre. Now, I did actually play Assassin's Creed Chronicles China and India prior to jumping into these two titles, and they are also very stealth based, actually more so than the 3D games in my opinion. So they were sort of a good taster or way to get myself back and excited about the genre. So specifically Unity was the one I was most concerned about because I had seen images of the graphical glitches that had occurred at release. People without faces, people with hovering eyeballs and teeth. It was not pretty. However, all of those have been fixed. The game plays really beautifully, like really beautifully. I wouldn't even notice it was released 10 years ago. It's that freaking good. I know it sounds like I'm exaggerating, but the graphics are so gorgeous. The sunrises, the sunsets, the rain effects, everything is so immersive that you feel like you're really, not that I've been there, but that you feel like you're actually living and breathing in 18th century French Revolution. In terms of the era and the setting, 100%. Where the game does suffer, however, is in terms of, I guess, some of the gameplay and some of the storytelling is a little bit lacking, unfortunately. But, you know, seeing as this was Ubisoft's first attempt at the next-gen Assassin's Creed titles, I do have to give them a little bit of leeway, and I would say that all of the points I'm about to discuss, Assassin's Creed Syndicate does improve upon it. So I guess Syndicate, being the direct follow-up the year after, really took that formula, honed in on it, polished it and made it what it was before moving on to the new style 2 years or 3 years, 2 years I believe later. Unity released in 2014, followed by Syndicate in 2015. I believe Origins was then released in 2017. Assassin's Creed Unity is set in French Revolution Paris, starring Arnaud Dorian and his lover Élise. Now, Élise and Arnaud were raised as siblings of sorts because Arnaud's father was murdered by the last protagonist of Rogue, Shay Patrick Cormac. So that really set events into progress here. So Arnaud was raised by Élise's father, who was a Templar, and then he was murdered, and the whole story is about trying to get redemption of sorts because Arnaud feels responsible. He's following up to the murder to try and win Élise's favor back, and basically he's chasing his tail the whole way, really. It's a personal vendetta to the point where he actually disregards every tenet of the creed. And, you know, he's, I'm just going to say it, he's not a likable guy, really. Whereas Altair sort of redeemed himself, regained his stature, and, you know, matured. Al-Mualim was a bad character. You know, he had to be taken care of, and Altair stepped into the new shoes of the mentor, right? Whereas Arno, what does he do? Like, he completely disregards, disrespects the creed. It's not really resolved by the end of the game, to be honest. There is an epilogue of sorts in Dead Kings, and that's about it. But yeah, so that aspect of it really rubbed me the wrong way. Élise, she's quite a beautiful character. I do like her. I like her very strong-headed, strong-minded woman, and she knows what she's trying to accomplish. What I did feel was lacking was her moments, okay? So you are playing as Arno. She does her own thing in the background, which are alluded to, but we never see what she's actually accomplishing. We never experience that. So I feel like that was sort of lacking. Let's move into the combat now. So the combat system in Unity, I did like the fact that it forced you to be more stealthy because you could die quite easily. However, it was very heavy. You felt heavy. Satisfaction of actually killing the characters, it really wasn't there because it was quite hard to sort of take down any enemy. So I really didn't like that. But I did like the leaning into the stealth, and this was also sort of explored in Syndicate. So every sequence ends with an assassination target, and each target has its own mission built around it. You have to explore all the entry points. You can find stealth opportunities, you can find aid opportunities, and linking this all in, it feels really built around the stealth. And it sort of plays out like a hitman mission. You have to infiltrate massive palaces with opulent rugs and paintings and these like bourgeois dinner parties, sort of making your way through crowds, hiding in these opportunities, and really making your way through to find the target. And I loved that. I think that was really well done. And the lockpick ability really worked well in these scenarios because you did have locked doors, which makes sense. Like, why in previous games did they leave all of these like obvious entry points for assassins? Like, hello. So lockpicking made sense. It was integrated well. It was kind of frustrating to use. However, I think that kind of helped because you're sort of frantically trying to open these doors before you're found by the guards. So that was really cool. I like that. Side missions. Side missions, I feel like obviously this game was playing to the annual release schedule of Assassin's Creed at the time, and it did take away from side missions. There were side Paris stories, they were called, and there were quite a lot of these, however, became very repetitive. You're doing the same sort of tasks over and over again, and the premise behind them weren't, look, previous games like Brotherhood had missions built around these sort of story arcs and had cutscenes, felt interesting, integral to the story. These, however, lacked a lot of voice acting. Arno's silent. You read the assassination contracts, you read database entries, you're basically reading blurbs and plot summaries. Please show us, don't tell us. I think that's the sort of driving point here and why it was kind of lacking so much. Paris stories really weren't my cup of tea. There were a few good ones like Madame Tussauds. Everyone, well, especially in Australia, everyone knows of that because of the Madame Tussauds Wax Museum, which is in Darling Harbour. So I think that was sort of interesting. Some of the ones built around Napoleon and his love life and the two sort of lovers that he's going back and forth. That was interesting. Some of the others, however, very repetitive. I did give up. I didn't complete all of them. Murder mysteries. I love the murder mysteries. I don't like the fact you have to ferry yourself halfway across the city to get to the investigation zones. The way it was integrated, the clues you had to find, the suspects, very fun, very well integrated. Different sort of mission. I wouldn't have expected that in an AC game previously, so that thumbs up for that. I did like that. Now, where are we left off? Overall, I feel like the press that it received was, I mean, in hindsight, now that everything's patched and working well, not bad. Not a bad game. Syndicate. I love Syndicate. I really love Syndicate. And the reason I like it, I had such low expectations going in. I thought, ugh, another Unity before I can go into Origins, before I can go to Ancient Egypt. I have to go through another one of these sort of newish settings. Not at all. It was really, really good. So Syndicate took everything that was good about Unity and really revamped it, really polished it, and made it really, really good. So what I felt was lacking in Unity, traversal. We had foot. We could move on foot. That was it, really. That was it. Whereas in Syndicate, we get horse and carriages. You can go through the street, feel like you're in a Grand Theft Auto set in Victorian London. Very good. Also, we get the rope launcher. So no longer are we sort of stuck scrambling slowly up this building. No, you can stand at the edge, press L1, up you go. And then you can latch onto all these, it's sort of like Spider-Man, you're like shooting out this web, you pull yourself over. Yeah, you can go all around the city. It took sort of like those zip lines and the hook from Revelations and just made it so you could do it anywhere and across quite vast distances. Considering that the roads were widened to make room for the horse and carriage, the fact that now you can go across rooftops without having to go down and across the road, that's really well done, because it would have made traversal horrible if you had to do that. So that was really good. What was also good is the two protagonist structure. I think that was really well done. This could have made Unity like heaps better, because you could have been playing as Arno, and then those background moments as Élise, you could play as her. You could explore what her motives and her character arc is, and that could intertwine, and the characters would have been united, because I don't feel like it was much unity. I mean, yes, there was the co-op aspect, but Arno and Élise, they, it's like a tragic Romeo and Juliet. She dies in the end, and that's not a unit. It's not a unit. But the Fry twins, Jacob and Evie, both get meaningful tales that are intertwined. Jacob's the more ruthless one. He sort of goes in heavy-handed, taking down assassination targets, and Evie has to sort of go behind him and repair the damage it does to the economy, to the political structure, to transportation, railroad, industry, the lot. Like, she's rebuilding London so that it doesn't like fall apart into pieces because of Jacob's actions. And we get some really good banter between the two of them going back and forth. Evie also has the motivation to uncover the Piece of Eden, which is the Shroud of Eden. So a lot of her stealth-based activities are based around trying to uncover where this is located. And that's also tying into the modern day story too. Also, Assassin's Creed Chronicles India ties in directly to this, so I'm really glad I played that before. I didn't actually know that, so that was a good fluke. The protagonist in India, his son actually is Henry Green. There you go. He has the Indian sword, the kukri, so that becomes a major weapon type in this game. And then we also have the cane sword and the brass knuckles, so that makes it really different in terms of combat. I like that. Talking about combat, it is a lot more fast, it's a lot more fluid, it feels really good. So that really builds upon Unity's disadvantage. You do also still have leveling system and health bars, but it is a better skill basis upgrade because you no longer have to rely on co-op missions to get those skill points. You just generally get them as you complete missions and earn experience points. So really good leveling structure to the game. Side quests are heaps better too. We still have London stories, but each category is its own character. So each character has their own story arc. So each story arc has missions built in. They all link together somewhat and form an overall sort of fulfilling story arc. I liked how that was done. They had their own cutscenes, voice acting. It was a lot more polished. So that was well done. Murder mysteries are also back. They make a return. Makes sense. We have Scotland Yard. Sherlock Holmes was authored by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who is a child in this and sort of tags along to your murder mysteries, which is really cool. And that, again, overall structure, there's 10 of those. They do link together and you get a satisfying conclusion. And each of these kind of story arcs does have a perk, like you get maybe a weapon or a new outfit or a piece of gear. So it's worthwhile completing because you get good upgrades to your abilities. So that's a good reward. Getting to meet historical English figures that I've actually studied at university, like Karl Marx, really cool. Charles Darwin, Charles Dickens, the author of Oliver Twist, which is really cool because, a lot of the gameplay is based around children. There's actually children in this game. That's wild. I don't think I've ever seen children in Assassin's Creed. So a lot of the gameplay is set around liberating children who are being underpaid and facing bad working conditions, which was part of that era. Also, Oliver Twist is based around that whole thing. So, one of the first missions I remember was set right in the ironworks, and you see these children sitting down at tables and they're sorting out metal, and it's like, wow, to think that children had to do that back in the day is wild. Thank goodness for the labor reforms that come through and the working conditions that we have. This was integrated well. The time period, the story was really explored really well. Victorian era London is really one of my favorite periods of history, just like the Great Pirate era, like what we had for Black Flag. So that did help a lot. But the game itself is really well done too. So I don't think it was just my own bias for the time period. I think the game itself was a lot more polished than Unity. Oh, World War One. That's wild. We actually got to go to Britain during the war. I know Unity had these sort of helix glitch things where you sort of just... they were cool set pieces, but there wasn't anything meaningful to do there. And there was no reason why you went there. It didn't make sense. It was a bit of a shoe-in, to be honest. But this is sort of like its own, it's optional, but it integrated the main gameplay structure of the normal game, but on a microcosmic level. We had 5 little mini boroughs we had to liberate, and there was war spies you had to take out. So it played like a little version of the main gameplay, but set in World War One. We got to meet Winston Churchill, that Prime Minister who went through World War One, World War Two Britain. He carried that country. So that was cool. And it was kind of funny. I think it was sort of very self-aware when you do finish that main story, and Lydia, who's the granddaughter of Jacob, and you're playing as her, she just says, "So that's it then." And Churchill's just like, "Well, not exactly, we've still got a war to fight." So it was kind of funny that they sort of poked fun at the fact that you resolve this little story, but that's not gonna end a war. It's sort of just a little kind of episode within that whole big structure. So that was cool. So I know Ubisoft isn't keen on doing a full-fledged title in that period, so at least they gave us, World War One. That was cool. Not all the killing, not all the war, not all... I just mean the fact that, yeah, you know what I mean. I'm not sadistic. And I guess sort of another thing I haven't really touched on is collectibles. So previous AC titles got you to collect feathers or banners or flags, whatever. Waste of bloody time, IMO. But this had a bit more meaning to them. They were integrated to the time period, and you do get little database entries, which is cool. So you have illustrations of the time period. You sort of find them on the wall. So you get to see, those sketches that they did on the big printing presses. You also get to collect pressed flowers, which is really cool. You get the language of flowers, like 30 different entries of these flowers, and what their symbolic meaning is. Because apparently in the Victorian era, because they couldn't express their emotions really like outward, like they weren't allowed to do that, it was sort of frowned upon. This was another way of expressing how they felt. They used flowers as a language to express what they were feeling. So the fact that they documented that and made that in the story was really cool. And my sister is a florist, so that was kind of cool just to sort of see that. There was also beer bottles you could collect. So if you're interested in sampling beer and seeing the different tastes, that's there. And they had the helix glitches again, and that unlocks sort of like glimpses into what's happening in the present day story. I'm not going to go and collect all of them, but that's there too. I did also like the fact I'm actually working in transport and logistics now, so to see like a Victorian era version of transport and logistics with rail, road, ferries over the Thames River, that was cool. And comparing that to now, what we're doing in Australia with rail and road across the nation of Australia, that was just a personal kind of flair that it gave to me enjoying the game. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I feel like AC Unity, AC Syndicate did experience a lot of bad press when they first released. However, going there, 8 or 9 years later, playing them again, experiencing them again with no glitches whatsoever, I can say they're solid games, they can be enjoyed, they have really exciting, interesting stories, time periods that are explored, that whole playground experiencing historical time periods, it's still there. I'm interested to see what happens moving forward when I get up to Origins, Odyssey and Valhalla to see how the RPG style changes things, but I do suspect, even if stealth's not there as much, you're still going to have a historical time period to explore, which will be cool. I hope you enjoyed my little video essay on these two titles, my sharing my thoughts on them and sort of extrapolating my experiences. If you did enjoy it, please give me a like and leave your thoughts below. I want to know what you think of these games, what you experienced, what was maybe you played it when they did first release. That'd be cool, see how it compares back then. Let me know, and do consider clicking on the bell icon to subscribe, because I don't upload often. I don't have a solid release schedule, so if you subscribe you will get notified every time there is a new video, so that way you won't miss out and we can keep in touch. So thank you so much everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and please take care, God bless, and I see you in the next video.